Alright, what's up guys? Charles here. Welcome back to another beautiful day in Stanford, California. It's actually kind of a rainy day, but beautiful nonetheless. And some pretty crazy stuff has unfolded since we last talked. So for those of you who don't know, I actually won the NCAA championship for cross country. Even sitting here talking about it doesn't feel real. But you know, looking at the trophy, got it right here. So that actually helps me, you know, remember that it actually really did happen, which is just so crazy. When I talk to people about it, you know, I usually try and express, you know, how long I've been working for something like this or how much it means to me because of that. But with you guys, especially those of you who have been around for a while, it feels like I don't really have to do that because you've been with me like every step of the way. You know, I think you guys know how insane this is for me. For those of you who are new to the channel, you know, part of the reason why I started this is just to document this whole process of, you know, being a college athlete, being at Stanford, what it's like to be in the Division I scene and sort of helping people understand that little world that I'm in, you know, a little bit better. And then I guess it's just turned out to be this crazy story, you know, and now we have not a conclusion per se, but you know, it ended up going somewhere really crazy. So it's just really cool to have started it, you know, just for fun, just to document something and then have that be so worth documenting. So you can check any of those videos out. There's a ton. I used to post every week freshman year, and that's always the goal, but you know, it's easier said than done. But today I had a bunch of different ideas for what I wanted to do in the video right after this happened. Kind of what I ended on was sort of doing a race breakdown. You know, the ESPN coverage was so amazing. Shout out ESPN for that. And just kind of walk you guys through what it was like to be out there, what was going through my head, you know, at every point in the race. And I'm not gonna lie and pretend this is the first time I'll be watching it back. You know, I was already watching it back on the plane ride home just cause, yeah, it's been such an amazing thing just to relive and experience. Also, this video is sponsored by Stride. Huge thank you for reaching out and helping to support the channel. It's something that goes a really long way for me and also gives me a hard deadline to make videos. So I guess it works for both of us. And without further ado, let's just get into it. To kick this thing off, I'm gonna sort of give some background for like what was going on before the race. Obviously, I was extremely nervous. The caliber of athletes at this meet is, you know, just on another level. I'd had a pretty much perfect training build up to this race, but you can never feel too confident. And I knew there were a lot of guys, not just on other teams, but also on my team that are just absolutely excellent distance runners. So I was nervous. Another thing was, you know, there was a little bit more press coverage. The day before the race, I gave, you know, an interview with ESPN, and there was also a press conference before the race, which, you know, were super cool. And I love talking with everyone at those things. But the way that I've always had, you know, pre-race processes is sort of locking myself up in a hotel room and trying to relax as much as possible. So, you know, before a race this big, I was unsure of how things like that would affect me just because it was so different from anything I'd experienced. And those things ended up being super fun, as I said before. But yeah, there were a ton of nerves. I mean, this meet is huge, and it's what so many guys spent all year, you know, training their absolute hearts out for. So I knew it was gonna be a challenge. But yeah, everything went well. Pre-race run went well. We got through all the interview stuff and I was feeling good. Had a ton of energy in the legs, and yeah, then the race started. So the start was kind of like every NCAA's, where all the guys are so excited that everyone's kind of running a little bit faster than I think, you know, they realistically think they can hold, myself included. You know, we're all out in this massive line, like pushing together and just kind of like sprinting. It's also a little bit downhill, which lends itself even more to just kind of people overextending themselves a little bit, but then it actually settled in pretty fast. I remember 2 years ago when Kiptu was racing this race, you know, he kind of shot out like a cannon, then everything got strung out. But we kind of went fast, then slow, kind of forming a line at the front. And then when we got up to the first hill, which was right by the K marker, I remember Nico Young just separates. And, you know, luckily for me, I'd already been sort of at that front, like second row point in the race. So I was able to see the move. You know, a lot of people have asked me, you know, what were you thinking? What was the decision making there? But if I wasn't so close to him when I saw him go away, you know, that split second decision that I made to go with him, I wouldn't have even had that split second. If you're 2 or 3 rows back, you might not even see him go until it's a little bit too late. So I sort of watched him go. I didn't see anybody else go with him. I was feeling okay, you know, I was a little bit tired from going out, but it seemed like a pace that wasn't wholly unreasonable. And reflecting on this race, it's a really funny moment for me because one of my race weaknesses, I think, has always been overestimating myself. You know, thinking I can get through this, you know, I feel great right now. I don't have to worry about anything. And then, you know, really suffering in that second half of the race. That's what happened to me, you know, in March of 2021 on the same course. So, you know, I try and say that I've learned from it and I try to be more restrained, but you know, I didn't really think about it too much. I just kind of wanted to go. So I did kind of like a gradual surge. I didn't want to catch up immediately, expend a ton of energy covering, you know, 6 feet of distance. Drew Bosley came right with me and kind of went up ahead of him. And that's when I kind of had the idea, and I still don't know if I'm right on this, but it seemed like there was sort of a strategy behind what was going on. And that gave me a lot of confidence because, you know, I wasn't involved. I was definitely excluded from being in the know of what they were really planning, but I had at least a level of trust that it wasn't just a blind move up to the front. And racing with two guys who are also so invested in the team battle, you know that they're not gonna throw all their chips away at the beginning of the race. Basically at that point when we latched on, all I was doing was making sure that I could handle those hills because you gotta go over them twice. And I think that's kind of just a reason that we were able to separate the way that we did was people who had run the course almost suffered from experience, I think, just knowing how awful it really was, because it is. That 2021 race is one of the most brutal, painful experiences of my life, going over those hills the second time. And I think people, you know, remembered that and felt that in their legs and wanted to make sure that they could get through that second lap. But somehow Nico, Drew, and I, you know, we got through those hills, we came through the 5K marker, and I remember thinking, this is exactly where I got spat out back in 2021. And it was so similar because of that race. I also decided to sit with the NAU pack, and at that point in the race, they made this huge surge, and I thought we were all just spent, and they just sort of sprinted away from me. That I learned a lot from, but I was laughing to myself a little bit at that point in the race. You know, the wind was coming at us, and you know, it felt so similar in some capacities that I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh my God, did you just do the exact same thing? You know, the only thing you really learned from doing it 2 years ago, did you just make the same mistake? I had a moment of calm, I felt great, you know, and I thought to myself, if you can cover this next move, you know, the move that broke you 2 years ago, then you could win this race. It wasn't you're going to win this race. It wasn't, you know, you'll have 100% chance, but it was, you have a shot, and you know, a shot is all I've ever wanted. Hey guys, Charles here. Thanks for sticking around till this point in the video. I'm here to talk to you guys about Stride Running, which is a really cool company that kind of uses hardware and software to help you track, you know, the effort you're putting in training wise. The way they do it is with this unique metric called running power. And what it basically does is it measures the way your feet are moving. It measures, you know, how fast you're going, whether you're running over hills, whether there's wind, you know, it takes the weather into account. All these things sort of give you an idea of how much effort you put into an individual run. So the hardware side of things is sort of the Stride Pod that you put on your shoe and you use it to like track all these metrics, and then that uploads to your watch. And then the software side sort of comes in, you know, tracking it week over week with their really cool app. For me, I really liked using it, comparing individual runs and seeing, you know, how difficult any given run might be, and you know, what days might be the best days to do runs like that, and making sure that I didn't, you know, put too much on any given week. And I found it really helpful to get, you know, very quantified statistics that I could just sort of dig into and have fun with. You know, it's something that I enjoy doing. I'm really into the like technological side of training, so for me it was a fun tool that I enjoyed using. To get like a concrete example of what I'm really talking about, here is like a run right before Nutty Comb, and I wanted to keep my power low. And we can sort of compare it to either, you know, a normal easy run or a hard workout, and you see that that number is a lot lower. And so kind of key areas like that for me in the season were where I really enjoyed using the app. Either I felt a little bit tired one day, or what I really enjoyed is if I felt really good one day, I could sort of look back and see, you know, a generalizable statistic for how hard those runs were that sort of got me into a place that I was feeling good. And it was a great way to track that kind of thing if that's something you're into. So that's just a kind of an example of how I used it, but obviously world is your oyster. You can use it however you want. And I just think it's a really cool tool. So if you want to check them out, you can head over to stride.com. I'll have a link in my description. And yeah, totally check it out. I appreciate you guys for watching, and thank you so much. So I'm pretty sure it's Drew. He makes a huge move down that home stretch. You know, they were pushing a lot of downhills on the race. I preferred to work on the uphills. I sort of feel him pulling away, and I'm like, can I hold this? Can I hold this? Can I hold this? I know that we're about to head into an uphill. And then when we hit that uphill, I sort of reattach myself back onto the pack, and I'm overjoyed because, you know, this is the thing that I couldn't do. You know, that was the moment where I felt that progression. You know, I felt that a real tangible difference, you know, from my own efforts and from all those people that had supported me and done their best to help me better myself. And so I felt like I had a shot and I was in that race and it was just awesome. And I was still feeling a little bit cautious. You know, I still didn't want to push it any faster than we were going until I felt how that second round of hills, you know, I was really feeling in my legs. So we go on that long flat part, we come around, and then it almost feels like you're descending into hell, because you go up onto this little plateau and it's so easy, there's no hills, and then you really dive into those hills, and then it's just hill, downhill, hill, downhill, hill, downhill, hill, and then I think flat, hill, and then downhill finish. I may have got that wrong, but you kind of get the idea. Once you go down there, you're in for something crazy. So we descend, you know, down into those hills, and I'm in this evaluative state. We know how far the guys are behind us, that it's really a three-man race at this point. I'm trying to like hear how they're breathing. I'm trying to look at their form, see if it's changed at all since we started racing. I'm trying to look at myself, you know, how are these hills feeling? Should I stick to the game plan? Should I make any modifications? You know, how best can I win this race? How best can I get my team, you know, that 1 point? And then we hit the K marker. And the K marker was this crucial point in this race where you've done almost all of like of the brutal heavy lifting, and it's kind of racing for home. So at the K marker, I felt really good, you know, really good, all things considered, and I was ready to pick it up. I was ready to make a push. And so I think at that point Drew might have dropped off the back just a little bit, and I knew Nico was right behind me. You know, I think either I could see the shadows or you could just tell off of the way people were cheering. And then there was just this moment that I'll never forget, you know, rounding into the last long uphill straight before the finish, where someone on the sideline was just screaming at Nico that there was 1 point in the team race. And so I thought I felt Nico fading off a little bit maybe, but I knew, you know, with the type of runner he is and how invested he is in that team performance, that it was gonna be a hard home stretch. At that point, I'm just thinking, you know, what can I do? But there's nothing you really can do. At that point, it kind of comes down to training. You know, I don't think either of us was trying harder or working harder than the other. You know, we were both just out there leaving it all on the course. And so he pulls up behind me. I only have one thing left, and that's to start sprinting. So what I like to do is sprint a little bit before the corner, you know, catch them a little off guard. Then they've got to catch up to you a little bit. I started the sprint before the turn. You know, I was sustaining it. You know, I was going all out. It was downhill, which helped a lot. And I sort of just felt slowly like I was pulling away. And slowly, and I was so invested in, are you pulling away? Are you doing this? This is so insane, that it wasn't until, you know, I sort of fully pulled away and I saw, you know, the big blue NCAA logo on the floor, and it really hit me where I was like, you're about to win this race. And at that point, everything had kind of gone out the door. All I was focusing on was just getting across this line, because it felt like I had the most precious gem or treasure in the world in the palm of my hands. And the only thing I was worried about in the world was not, you know, letting it slip through the cracks. And so I felt like I was carefully, you know, guiding it across the line. I didn't want to do any celebration. I didn't want to do anything, but, you know, as I got to the line and I really knew I crossed it, I was overcome with emotion. It was something I really didn't know, you know, if I was capable of. I knew I could get close, but it's not till you really cross that threshold that you understand you were good enough on that day to be the best guy in the country. I was worried once I actually got it, this thing I've been chasing forever, will the fire still be there? You know, because you don't know how it's gonna change you. You know, you've been so singularly focused for so long. What do you do when you actually catch it? And for me, it's completely the opposite. The fire, you know, is stronger than it's ever been. It was just a complete validation of everything I'd put in, and everything, you know, I'd put on the line to get here was completely worth it. It's just one of the best feelings in the world. So that's kind of it. This video is a lot longer than I thought it would be. But I guess that makes sense, just because for me, it's something that's so fun to talk about. To all of you that I met out there on the course, that was awesome. And thank you guys, you know, who are watching this video right now, just for checking in. Just the fact that you guys, you know, care at all to watch this video or just to check in, you know, anytime with the channel means so much to me, and I really appreciate it. When I started a YouTube channel, I was always aware, you know, of how toxic the internet can be, but this is one of the most wholesome places, you know, I've ever been on the internet. And so I really appreciate you guys, you know, being such an awesome community. You make it so fun for me to make videos like this, and I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna try and, I say this every time, I'm gonna try and post more, but as we all know, I will see you guys whenever I see you. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and till next time, I'll see you when I see you. All right, peace.